Alright guys, welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be breaking down my IonQ trade. Now this was requested by someone in the Discord, basically just giving my technical analysis for my setup, just an overall breakdown. So I'm going to treat this video as a way to show you guys kind of how I look for a setup when I'm selling options specifically, and then more of a case study example. We are still in this position, so I'm going to go through, mostly the technicals on it. I'll touch very briefly on the fundamentals, but overall with this I want you guys to kind of be able to understand my thinking behind the trade, when I'm setting up for it, not just, when I'm showing you guys, I'm filled in a trade, this is exactly my fill price, etc., etc. So jumping straight into this, what I will say is I post all of these in my Discord now. I post on my Instagram story as well, but my Discord takes priority now. So if you're not following my Instagram, definitely go follow that at CYRN. You'll find a link to the Discord there. I post, everything that I'm doing, all my trades, exactly my strike prices, expirations, everything. So definitely go join that completely for free. But IonQ, for example, I wasn't a huge fan of this stock in the past. Definitely something that I was eyeing because obviously, this company had a massive change, and we saw this huge rip back in September of 2025, this massive run creating all-time highs around the $84 level. So after this massive rip that we had all the way up to 85, obviously we have just been trailing off, massive bear cycle on this stock. Nothing too much to say here. Specifically, I will say, something I am very bullish in is quantum. And this is not a hot take, I would say, but definitely my opinion, because while everyone is focused on AI right now, and it's, this is, this huge thing that's going on. Obviously, the AI trade is one of the biggest trades we've ever seen. I would say in my time in the markets, I've only been in the markets for 4 years now specifically. So definitely the biggest, and craziest aspect I've ever seen. But I think the next trade personally could be the quantum trade, and I see this creeping up in a lot of other stocks. So anything quantum related kind of has my eye. Obviously IonQ has shifted to be a quantum company, which is why it has grabbed my attention. So obviously after putting in the high of 84, coming all the way down to 25, that is an absolutely insane high to low here, almost 70% to the lows. God, if you were holding the stock, I really hope you had balls of steel on this, respectfully. But I will say rallying back to 73 is something interesting. But what I'm trying to do here is just give you guys a top-down analysis. When I open up a chart, I'm just going to look at the stock on a basis like this. This is what my screen looks like. I'm just going to identify, what am I looking at here? Does this look like a meme coin that's getting rugged? Does this look like a good and healthy chart? And this is what I'm trying to identify by doing this. But what I will say, this is where I kind of live. So it's with the most recent price action. If I've looked at a stock fully and I'm like, okay, this is where I will, treat this as something I will be selling puts on for the week. This is where I'll kind of zoom into. I want to see the last, swing high, which is going to be this 73. And I want to see the last swing low as well, which is going to be 31. So now living in this kind of price action right here, let's break down this example. So first of all, I see a lot of resistance levels. I only see 2 support levels. Another thing that stands out very big to me is this 200-day SMA. My rule of thumb here is if I am trading below the 200-day SMA, so like here, if we're trading below it, the fundamentals have to give me higher conviction, because if we are trading above it, this means the higher time frame trend is intact. Trading below it obviously just means that we do not have the trend on our side here. So this is exactly where we're going to need some sort of confirmation from the fundamentals that says, yeah, you're good to take some longs on this, or just buy shares in this company or sell put at an area. But overall, that is where I'm thinking. It's not something that kills my entire trade, but it is definitely something that says, hey, watch out. Definitely be aware of this before entering a position. Now, what I will say is I love seeing price action like this, where we have a massive impulse. Obviously this is catalyst related, and then coming back and filling that after the fact. So we've done this. I do like seeing that. And what I will say is we have left some great support levels. Another thing that you guys have heard me talk about a lot has been the fact that I don't like price action that's just moving like this, specifically up or down. When we're just this just looks like algo buying or selling. I'm really not a fan of this. What I really like to see is clear swing highs and swing lows getting put into play like you see right here. To me, this is healthy price action. We have buyers, we have sellers, we are moving very linearly. And something I will say with this particular position, you can see how this support level right here is where my position actually was, or my cash gear put is basically at. You can see how much we have tested this area. You can see this massive impulse from this support area. You can see right here, bouncing off it again. How many touch points? God, I sound like Tory trades right now. But you can see that this is an area where buyers have come in prior, and you know that this could be an area where they continue buying at. So again, looking at this chart, with recent price action, I do see just a huge sell-off. I like that we filled this gap right here, and now that we are continuing up after touching the support level and pushing off of it very, very nicely. So getting into my core strategy, which you guys are very familiar with right now, obviously I want to be 10 to 15% off all-time highs. Obviously, from like the 84 level down to where this is, we're 54% off all-time highs. So this already, you know, fits the bill right there. No problem at all. The next thing I want to see in the current price action is being 5 to 10% off the most recent high. And this technically is the most recent high over there, but I marked this high out because this is the high that I'm actually using, just because we haven't put in the pivot high just yet. So what I'm going to do is just use this one for the example. So from here to our strike price, it's going to be around 14%. So again, this fits the bill, being 10 to 15% off all-time highs and 5 to 10% off the most recent high. So that fits. Next thing I want to see is my strike has to be at least 5 to 10% off where we were trading at the start of the week. So obviously this is going to be Monday. So from here, again, it's just going to be this high down to my strike price is again 14% from there to there. So this fits the plan from a technical perspective. Okay. Again, we're using this 200-day SMA as the confirmation. If we are trading below it, the conviction needs to be there. Now, what I will say is the IonQ earnings didn't come in amazing. And there's, you know, you can interpret this a few different ways. And this is why I never really speak about fundamentals a lot in my videos, just because how I interpret something is really not how you're going to interpret it either. So this is why I always say do your own due diligence, you know. But I will say, you know, in my eyes, the good of this was obviously, you know, the revenue was up 287% as you like you can see here. That's pretty good. I will say this is still a money losing speculative quantum company. So obviously there was a loss on this, and you can see there was a good surprise there that wasn't exactly awesome. And another thing is the valuation. So roughly at a $16 billion market cap, you know, versus about the $285 million midpoint of revenue guidance, this is a 56x on the current year sales. So for me, this is very, you know, one of those things where valuation does seem a little bit stretched, considering, you know, with 3 days to expiration, you know, it means the gamma risk is pretty big here. So, you know, one ugly headline can move this stock 10 to 15%, in against my direction. But overall, you know, I am bullish enough on IonQ to own it lower. And obviously the earnings risk is, you know, already behind us, which we actually, you know, we can see that we didn't sell off that much. We've already pumped off of it. So another thing here is there's no major scheduled catalyst before Friday. Balance sheet is still very strong, and the growth to me is good, and the volatility lets me get paid enough to set an entry price where I would want to own this long term. Again, this is more of a speculative quantum play for me, so this is kind of where I'm looking to get these names a little bit early. Obviously, there is still risk, and again, I really need to stress with a trade like this being, you know, with the name underneath it. I am gonna say, you know, never financial advice. Don't just buy something because I'm talking about it. Definitely do your own research, 100%. And again, this stock is a great example of, you know, why I don't really touch on fundamentals, because, you know, with a lot of stuff trading at a 56 multiple, you know, of revenue versus their valuation, you know, that is definitely something that, you know, you should be paying attention to. And me personally, I'm looking at the other stuff. Obviously, you know, their revenue is looking amazing. They're pretty cash strong right now. And their guidance was raised. So definitely one of those things where I am, you know, happy to take the risk on this position for the trade. And that is what I always pride myself in. It's, remember, with options, you know, you can very quickly turn a position from, you know, picking up pennies in front of a steamroller, or, you know, am I getting paid enough to take on the risk of owning shares at a level of my choosing? But in terms of a technical analysis, it fits the bill completely. 10 to 15% off the all-time highs, obviously 5 to 10% off the most recent high, tapping into a key level of support where our entry would be, and we are below the 200-day SMA, so we do need some sort of fundamental conviction here just to increase, you know, why we would want to be in this position from down here. So that's kind of like the technical recap of things. You guys know my strategy by now. I do not gatekeep it, you know, at all. Very, very simple. The fundamentals is where this really shines, but definitely something where you don't want to be caught in the middle of a trade like this. Obviously, the last time we were trading down at these levels, was April 2026. You can go all the way back where, this is back in 2024 was kind of like the last time we were at these levels, or way back when we were at these levels. So this is a very revisited level. Obviously, if we broke below the 30s on this, I would think we're going for a ride here, but I am looking at their long-term, guidance on this, and whatnot, especially in the quantum name specifically. I'm such a big advocate for quantum. I love Google, and that's also why I didn't sell. This is like around where my cost basis is right now, actually, and I made a video today talking about how we're back at my cost basis. I was up like 10% on the shares to this high right here, and I did not sell them. So, yeah, I will say from a technical perspective, recapping this fits the plan. Nothing too crazy. Definitely fundamentals have to be rock solid to take a trade like this. And this is why I always, make it very clear to you guys. You do need to be rock solid with your fundamentals because, no strategy is saving you from, a bad company. So for the time being, I do want to own this long term. I do think, yeah, and you can see right here, the next AI surge, top quantum ETFs to buy. So, I'm pretty bullish on quantum for the long term. I was actually just listening to a podcast today as well on the whole quantum aspect of things. But overall, recapping this just from start to finish one more time, looking at the overall chart, I can see that, we have come down. Obviously, we're making some legs on this. There's no question about it. Then moving into more recent price action, you can see that we are much, quite very much off all-time highs, 10 to 15% off the most, off the all-time highs, 5 to 10% off the most recent high, putting my strike at a key level of support or between them. I don't think the premiums would have made sense for me because usually I like it at a level of support or between two levels of support. If I really don't want to get assigned shares, this is my little trick where if this is where we started, we have the possibility of bouncing here, and if my strike price was like in between, let me just put that a little more in the middle. If my strike price was in the middle, you have like the the possibility of bouncing right here, or if you do come down, it has to come even more to get there, and then you kind of just use that time decay there. You also have another support level here, which we could find some room right there. So I chose to put it at this level of support. Me personally, 200-day SMA. Obviously is my confirmation on this, but overall it is one of those things where I'm very bullish on quantum. Again, not financial advice, you're responsible for your own trades, but from a technical perspective, this completely fit my plan. Obviously the premiums made sense for me, locking in a really big week, and then overall, my strike price is in a good position with only 3 days left till expiration, so we would need about a 14% move just to assign and to stay there in 3 days just to assign me the share. So this isn't actually a stock that I'm worried about this week at all. We did move 2% today. We had SMCI and CoreWeave earnings as well, which should help the tech, trade just kind of continue a little bit higher for the rest of the week, and assuming that, we can continue that bullish momentum. Those earnings did come in really good, so we will see. But from a technical perspective, it fit the plan fundamentally. This was a good, this is where an area where I'd like to own at. And it really just comes down to, where do you want to own shares long-term at? And this is a level where I would not mind it. But overall, if you guys have any questions, feel free to shoot me a message in the Discord, on Instagram, wherever it's easiest. I'm happy to answer anything you guys want. But with that, leave a like, comment, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.